many pastors do not think that they should be leaders. They think that they should be a pastor of word and sacrament. And where that comes from is from 1530, the Augsburg Confession, Article 7. And it says the church should be a place where the gospel is rightly taught and the sacraments are rightly administered. And so therefore, from Melanchthon and Martin Luther coming up with that description of the church, then we just figure out, well, then a pastor should help the church do that. And so a pastor will be a minister of word and sacrament. The problem is that those occur in the building of a church. And so, I always think about visiting as a tourist in Europe, some empty cathedral or church, and there's a little service going on with a little priest and two old ladies. And the priest thinks to himself, or the pastor, the rector thinks to himself, I'm doing a good job. I am rightly teaching the gospel, and I am rightly administering the sacrament. And they pat themselves on the back, I'm doing a good job. And I think to myself, no, you're not. No, because the problem is that this is a riff on the Great Commission in Matthew 28:18 through 20. It would go and make disciples, baptizing. So it's got that same vibe of teaching and administering the sacraments, but there's no going there. And that's one of the big problems. The other problem is that it puts a real emphasis here in reaction to the Roman Catholic Church. That's why Martin Luther has this in here about rightly, accurately, with precision teaching the gospel and administering the sacraments. And so Lutherans typically will put a huge emphasis on accuracy, because if there isn't the gospel taught rightly and the sacraments taught, administered rightly, then it may not be a church. But that's not what we see in Scripture. We see in Paul's letters to the Corinthians, to the Galatians, they're quite messed up theologically, but they're still addressed as an ecclesia, as a church. And so that sort of obsession with the exact precision and then kicking out people like you see in the Presbyterian Church of America, where there's, again, a real emphasis on precision, then you have that take over rather than this idea of, no, your purpose is to make disciples of Jesus Christ, baptizing them we see in the Great Commission. Again, one of the other problems is that a pastor could do this by themselves. There's no need for anybody else to be there. If a pastor by himself, preaches the gospel and administers the sacraments correctly, then technically they've done a good job. And so, again, that is just not what the purpose of the church is, and that's not what a pastor should be. The pastor should also have this idea of reaching outsiders and going, that sort of thing. So that's why often we get in this idea that a pastor should be a shepherd. That's fine. That's in the Scriptures. That is an idea to pastor the flock. Yes. And again, you have no, in that metaphor, there's no idea of reaching outside sheep. That's not what a sheep does, is a sheep steal and to go and grab other sheep. They just take the ones that are theirs and they care for them. But the idea of a pastor or church leader should actually be beyond that. It should have this idea of going out and one of the other reasons, and I'll just go on and emphasize this as well, is that John Calvin said that in Ephesians 4:11, where you have the church has apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers, APEST, A-P-E-S-T. And what John Calvin wrote in the Institutes, and he wrote about the same time as the Augsburg Confession. The first edition of the Institutes were 1536, and the Augsburg Confession was 1530. And he says that according to this interpretation, which seems to me to be in agreement with both the words and opinion of Paul, those three functions, apostles, prophets, and evangelists in Ephesians 4:11, were not established in the church as permanent ones, but only for that time during which churches were to be erected where none existed before. And that is from Book 4, Chapter 3, Section 4 of the Institutes. And in other words, he's saying we don't need apostles, we don't need prophets, we don't need evangelists, all we need is shepherd teachers. We have already brought the good news to the whole known world. And therefore, all we need to do is this education function, this nurturing function. And again, that's a huge problem to only have your idea of what church leaders do. It does not include the real movers and shakers in the New Testament are the apostles and their designates who are going around leading, starting things, that kind of thing. And or you could even call those evangelists. And John Calvin said those are no longer necessary. There is a cessationism. It ceased the need for those gifts. And that's clearly wrong. That the church needs to be constantly bringing in new members, reaching outsiders. That is the emphasis of, the New Testament, is going out, reaching people beyond your tribe, beyond the people already reached. The thesis statement of the book of Acts, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and to the ends of the earth.